Welcome to today's Explainer. We're embarking on a genuinely fascinating journey today, diving deep into a chuanye cawa shui shrim gen yejo shendu tanjiu fenshi, which translates to an in-depth inquiry into professional self-narrative research. We are going to look at a real, raw diary case study of a retiring psychologist, peeling back the layers to see exactly how they make sense of their life's work and their changing identity. Through their personal reflections, their dreams, and their somatic experiences, we're literally exploring the architecture of the mind itself. We're going to see firsthand how professionals construct, dismantle, and ultimately rebuild their self-narrative at major life crossroads.
Okay, let's dive into this. When you wake up from a dream, what feeling is left in your body? Before we even begin to unpack the storyline or the plot of a dream, consider the physical sensation itself. Are your muscles totally tense? Is your breathing shallow, or do you feel light and rested? Keep that physical, bodily awareness in your mind as we go, because it is the exact starting point of our psychological deep dive today.
Layer 1, starting from dream body sensations. So we're going to peel this narrative back like an onion, starting with the raw, unfiltered data from our retiring psychologist's recent diary entries. Recently, our subject has been experiencing some really intense, highly stressful dream imagery. We're talking about being executed by gunfire, a king cobra, failing to graduate, a white tiger, leaving their teaching role. You absolutely don't need a psychology degree to see the extreme anxiety and conflict playing out here. These dreams are reflecting a massive internal struggle regarding major life transitions, specifically the terrifying prospect of retirement. Letting go of a professional identity that has defined them for decades is triggering a deep, almost existential panic.
Now, what's really interesting about this next realization is a profound shift that happens in their most recent diary entry. Despite all that previous anxiety, the subject writes, "Actually, waking up in the middle of the night, my heart has always felt sweet. It feels like there's hope, light, and a future." Notice that they aren't describing a sudden thrill or some wild excitement. They're describing a deep, bodily sensation of safety, peace, and natural unfolding. That feeling of sweetness right in the chest is a massive psychological signal. To really grasp why this is so absolutely crucial, we need to talk about Gestalt therapy. This approach heavily emphasizes somatic awareness, which simply means focusing on the body's physical experience in the present moment. Within this framework, the actual plot of the dream, whether it's a terrifying tiger or a missed graduation, is often way less important than the physical sensation that remains when you finally wake up. That lingering physical feeling of sweetness and security tell us that something fundamental inside the subject's mind is healing, even if the transition itself is scary. Layer 2, building a new internal father object. So where is this new, comforting sense of bodily safety actually coming from? Well, it connects directly to how the subject is restructuring their entire relationship with authority. In their diary, the subject documents a profound realization. They had been reading the works of the Indian philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti, and they noted, "It seems I have found a spiritual father who is highly socially functional, yet has a wise spiritual presence." The subject was profoundly struck by Krishnamurti's energy, his courage, his fierce independence, and his powerful spirit, all despite his physically thin appearance. Essentially, our subject found a completely new touchstone. Now, this is a massive, game-changing moment in professional self-narrative. In object relations theory, an internal father object is a psychological representation in your mind that dictates exactly how you relate to power, rules, and your own personal authority. By fixing onto Krishnamurti, the retiring psychologist isn't just, fanboying over a philosopher. They are actively, subconsciously building a brand new internal structure to rely on now that the external structures of their career, their professorship, their school, their institutional titles are all falling away. To really wrap our heads around this dynamic, we need to compare these two figures. The subject's biological father was a deeply respected school teacher, but tragically, he suffered a severe spinal injury when the subject was just 7 years old, which left him bedridden. So the original internal father figure was tied to respect and duty, for sure, but also to restriction, physical limitation, and really heavy burdens. Krishnamurti, on the other hand, represents absolute psychological freedom, clear insight, and the courage to just not be attached to authority. The subject isn't rejecting their biological father here. Rather, they're supplementing that image to create a much more complete, mature internal compass for their retirement. The subject is actively absorbing some incredibly powerful new traits here. Facing authority with free thought, finding independence from institutional validation, the courage to look within, and the strength to endure loneliness. Think about it. For decades, the subject's professional self-narrative required them to be the hero, right? Always fighting.
proving their worth, validating themselves through academic success. Absorbing these new traits means they are finally, truly letting go of the need to constantly battle. They're learning that true strength comes from inner clarity, not external conquest. Let's move to and see how this builds into layer 3, the Jungian perspective and anima return. As we shift our focus from authority figures over to youth and memory, the subject's diary reveals the sudden, completely unprompted emergence of a nostalgic song, Sylvia Chung's Shifo, which is a song that deals heavily with looking back on life choices. And with this song came an absolute flood of memories about a heartbreak they experienced way back at age 19. Now you might be wondering, why on earth would a retiring professional suddenly be dreaming about a teenage romance? Well, that specific 19-year-old heartbreak was the exact catalyst that originally pushed them to study psychology in the very first place. It was literally the genesis of their entire career.
This is exactly where Carl Jung's concept of the anima steps in and provides just incredible clarity. The anima represents an individual's inner life force, their emotional depth, and their soul. So from this perspective, the 19-year-old girl in these memories isn't just a literal person from the past. She is a projection of the subject's own vital, youthful life force. When they were 19, they projected all that incredible passion onto her. Now, decades later, as they step into retirement, that image, that energy is returning to them.
It's absolutely crucial to understand that recalling this heartbreak is not a regression. The subject isn't dwelling in the past or wishing they could undo a breakup. In Gestalt therapy, this is all about completion. The subconscious is essentially saying, hey, let's go back and pick up that young, passionate 19-year-old self, and let's bring that life force with us into retirement. It is the ultimate reclamation of their own vital energy.
Layer 4, final integration of life and love. And this brilliantly illustrates the deepest layer yet, where all these psychological threads finally weave together into a cohesive whole. We're seeing the profound evolution of exactly how the subject defines love. At 19, love was a romantic projection onto another person. Then, in their 30s and 40s, as they built their professional identity, love transformed into helping, teaching, and counseling others as a psychologist. Now, standing at the threshold of retirement, love is evolving yet again. This time into self-care, a deep connection with nature, and a creative trust in themselves.
When we first look at the raw data of the diary, the dreams of a father holding a child, the old songs like Glory of Love and Sylvia Chang's ballad, the memories of a beach party, the discovery of Krishnamurti, they kind of seem like totally random, disconnected fragments, don't they? But actually, they're all unifying symbols pointing to the exact same theme. The subject's psyche is systematically reorganizing itself, confirming that their future doesn't require fighting or striving anymore. It simply requires a mature, internalized capacity to love and be totally at peace. Let's bring this all the way back to the beginning. That somatic sweetness the subject felt in their chest when they woke up, it wasn't the sweetness of a teenage romance. It was the sweetness of profound reconciliation. It was pure gratitude. That 19-year-old heartbreak didn't lead to a marriage, but it became the starting point of a lifetime spent healing others. They are finally able to look back at their youth and their entire professional career without a shred of regret and with immense, gentle gratitude for a life well lived.
The architecture of a professional self-narrative is just incredibly complex, but it's also so deeply beautiful when we actually take the time to decode it. So I'll leave you with this. What unresolved memories are waiting to be integrated into your own life's narrative? Pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to those somatic signals in your body, because they just might be inviting you to reclaim a part of yourself that you left behind a long, long time ago. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.